Most people think power means controlling others. Nietzsche knew it meant controlling yourself. When he wrote these ideas in the late 1800s, everyone thought he was crazy. A sickly professor talking about power? But Nietzsche wasn't just writing philosophy. He was creating a blueprint for human transformation, one that modern science is only now starting to understand. This wasn't just theory for him. Nietzsche lived it. Here was a man plagued by horrible migraines, stomach problem, and near blindness. He couldn't even hold down a teaching job because he was so sick. But instead of giving up, he turned his suffering into strength. He'd write during his rare moments of clarity, often completing entire books while battling excruciating pain. The same guy who could barely leave his bed ended up hiking mountains in Switzerland, living alone in the wilderness, and producing some of the most powerful ideas in humanity. But here's what's really interesting. Nietzsche discovered something that most self-help gurus still haven't figured out. He realized that society actually teaches us to be weak. Think about it. We're told to be humble, to fit in, to follow the rules, to be realistic about our goals. Nietzsche saw right through this. He noticed that these moral values often came from people who were afraid of real power, afraid of standing out, afraid of becoming something greater. This isn't just old philosophy gathering dust in some library. When Nietzsche talked about the will to power, he wasn't talking about dominating others. He was talking about mastering yourself. He was talking about that fierce drive inside you that wants to grow, to overcome, to transform. The same drive that makes you push through one more rep at the gym, stay up late mastering a skill, or stand up for what you believe in when everyone else stays quiet. And here's the wild part. Modern psychology and neuroscience are now proving Nietzsche right. Research on resilience, personal growth, and peak performance all point to the same truth. Real power comes from overcoming resistance. Every time you face a challenge and push through it, you're not just surviving, you're literally rewiring your brain to become stronger. Nietzsche figured this out by looking deep into human nature, and now science is catching up to what he knew over a century ago. But be warned, what you're about to learn isn't comfortable. Nietzsche's insights aren't about making you feel good. They're about making you stronger. They're about waking up that unstoppable force inside you that society has tried to put to sleep. Because becoming unstoppable isn't about being perfect or unbeatable. It's about embracing the struggle that makes you grow. So forget everything you think you know about power, success, and becoming stronger. Nietzsche's about to show us why most people have it completely backward, and why the path to becoming unstoppable might be the exact opposite of what you've been taught. When Nietzsche first shared these ideas, he wasn't exactly living the high life. Picture this, a 34-year-old ex-professor living in cheap rooms across Europe, fighting constant health problems. But it was exactly this low point that led to his breakthrough. In 1879, after resigning from his teaching position at Basel University due to severe migraines and stomach issues, Nietzsche hit rock bottom. He could barely see, could hardly digest food, and spent most days in excruciating pain. But instead of giving up, this was when he made his most important discovery. While other philosophers sat in comfortable university chairs theorizing about life, Nietzsche was out there living through hell. And that's when he noticed something fascinating. His worst moments were actually making him stronger, not just mentally, but in how he approached every challenge in life. The turning point came after his break with Richard Wagner, who had been like a father figure to him. Wagner was the rock star of his time, a famous composer who everyone worshipped. Nietzsche had been his biggest fan, but he started noticing how Wagner's art was promoting the same weak values that were making society soft. Breaking away from Wagner wasn't just about music. It was Nietzsche's declaration of independence from everything that held him back. This is where Nietzsche introduced two ideas that would change everything: the will to power and the concept of the Übermensch. But forget what you've heard about these concepts. The will to power isn't about dominating others. It's about that raw drive inside you to become more than you are. Think about when you're in the middle of a workout and everything hurts, but something inside pushes you to do one more rep. That's the will to power. Or when you're working on a project late at night, exhausted, but something drives you to make it perfect. That's it too. And the Übermensch? It's not about being superhuman. It's about becoming the fullest version of yourself. Nietzsche saw that most people were living like sheep, following the herd, accepting limits placed on them by others, afraid to stand out. The Übermensch was his vision of someone who breaks free from these chains, who creates their own values, who turns their challenges into fuel for growth. These weren't just fancy philosophical ideas. Nietzsche was describing a practical path to transformation. He noticed that the people who became truly exceptional weren't the ones born with special talents or easy lives. They were the ones who learned to love the struggle, who used resistance as a way to grow stronger. Just look at any great athlete, entrepreneur, or artist. Their breakthrough moments usually come after their biggest setbacks. This is where things get really interesting, because Nietzsche was about to lay out exactly how anyone could apply these insights to transform themselves. And his first lesson? It's probably the opposite of everything you've been taught about becoming stronger. Forget motivational posters and Instagram quotes. When Nietzsche said, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger," he meant something way more radical than most people realize. He discovered that difficulty isn't just something to overcome, it's the actual fuel for growth. And he wasn't just talking about hitting the gym or grinding at work. He was talking about a complete mindset shift that modern science is only now starting to prove. Think about what happens in your body when you lift weights. You're literally damaging your muscle, creating tiny tears in the fibers. But here's the wild part. Your body doesn't just repair the damage, it overcompensates. It builds the muscle back stronger than before. Nietzsche realized this same principle applies to every area of life. Your brain, your willpower, your emotional resilience, they all grow stronger through resistance. But here's where Nietzsche takes it further than any modern self-help guru would dare. He says we shouldn't just accept difficulty, we should actively seek it out. Look at how he lived this himself. When most people would take medication for a migraine, Nietzsche would take long walks in the blazing sun. While others sought comfort, he lived in basic rooms with minimal furniture. He didn't do this because he was crazy. He did it because he understood that comfort is the enemy of growth. Modern neuroscience backs this up in a fascinating way. Research shows that when you push through difficulty, your brain releases chemicals like norepinephrine and dopamine. These don't just help you perform better. They literally change your neural pathway, making you more resilient. Studies on Navy SEALs show that their brains actually process stress differently after going through intense training. They're not just toughing it out. Their brains have physically changed to handle bigger challenges. But most people get this completely wrong. They wait to feel strong before taking on challenges. Nietzsche would say that's backward. You become strong by taking on challenges that feel beyond your current level. Look at Alexander the Great, one of Nietzsche's favorite examples. At 20 years old, he inherited a kingdom in chaos. Instead of playing it safe, he immediately launched the most ambitious military campaign in history. The challenges he faced didn't break him. They forged him into something extraordinary. This applies to everything. Want to get smarter? Don't read easy books. Tackle the ones that make your brain hurt. Want to build a business? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start now. When you don't know what you're doing, the struggle, the confusion, the setbacks, that's not the stuff getting in. That's the stuff making you unstoppable. But here's the crucial part Nietzsche emphasized. You have to choose the right challenge. Getting into pointless fights, taking stupid risks isn't what he meant. He talked about selecting difficulties that force you to grow in the direction you want to go. If you want to be a writer, that means tackling harder writing projects, not random challenges. The key is to find challenges that push you toward your vision of strength. And this brings us to one of Nietzsche's most radical insights. Happiness shouldn't be your goal. Growth should be. The satisfaction of overcoming a real challenge is worth more than 1,000 easy victories. This isn't about being miserable. It's about finding joy in the struggle itself. That's what separates the unstoppable from the average. Anyone can work hard when they feel it. The unstoppable find ways to grow even through their worst moment. But to truly apply this mindset, you need something else. You need to break free from what others think you should do and create your own values. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next. He wasn't just talking about religion. He was pointing out something way more personal. We've lost our source of meaning and value. Think about it. For thousands of years, people got their values from religion, tradition, or society. Now, we're free to choose our own path. That's both terrifying and exciting, but most people don't know what to do with this freedom. Look around. Most people are still living by values they never chose. They're working jobs they hate because that's what responsible people do. They're following fitness trends because Instagram says it's cool. They're chasing degrees because their parents said they should. Nietzsche saw this coming. He called these people the herd, not to be mean, but because they're letting others think for them. Here's where it gets personal. Think about your biggest goals right now. Are they really yours? Or are they what society programmed you to want? Maybe you're chasing a six-figure salary, but what you really want is creative freedom. Maybe you're trying to get six-pack abs, but what your body really needs is flexibility and functional strength. This isn't about being a rebel. It's about being honest with. Nietzsche lived this truth hard. When he was young, everyone expected him to become a pastor, his father. Great career, respected position, secure life. Instead, he chose to become a philosopher who questioned everything. People thought he was insane. His books barely sold, but he was living by his own values, and that made him more alive than all the successful people around him. But here's the tricky part. Creating your own values isn't just about rejecting everything. That's what teenagers do. Real value creation means building something new. Nietzsche used a great metaphor. He said, you need to be three things. First, a camel, then a lion, then a child. The camel carries the weight of tradition and learns from it. The lion fights back and says no to imposed value. But the child, that's the most important part. The child creates new values with innocence and joy. Let's get practical. Want to start creating your own values? Start with these questions, Nietzsche would ask. What makes you feel strong versus what others say should make you feel strong? When do you feel most alive, even if others don't understand it? What would you do if no one could judge you? What struggles do you actually enjoy? Modern research in psychology backs this up. Studies show that people who live by their own authentic values have better mental health, stronger relationships, and more career success. But here's the catch. It's not easy. You'll face resistance. People will question. Some will try to pull you back to the herd. Nietzsche saw this resistance as a good sign. If everyone agrees with your choices, you're probably not creating new values. You're just following hidden ones. Real value creation makes people uncomfortable because it challenges their own unexamined lives. This is where most people give up. They get a taste of social disapproval and run back to safety. But becoming unstoppable means pushing through this discomfort. It means having the courage to say, this is who I am, even when no one else gets it. And this leads us to Nietzsche's most powerful lesson, how to become who you truly are. Because creating your own values is just the beginning. The real challenge is living them out every day. Become who you are. On the surface, this sounds like the kind of empty advice you'd find on a coffee mug. But when Nietzsche said it, he was dropping a bomb on everything we think we know about self-development. He wasn't talking about finding your through meditation retreats or personality tests. He was talking about something much more radical, creating yourself through constant growth and brutal honesty. Here's the mind-bending part. Nietzsche believed your true self isn't something you discover. It's something you create through action. Think about someone learning to play guitar. At first, they're awful. Their fingers hurt. They make mistakes. But if they have that inner drive to play music, that's already their true self emerging. The awkward beginner and the future musician are the same person in different stages of becoming. Most people get stuck because they're waiting to feel ready or authentic before taking action. Nietzsche would laugh at this. He'd say it's backwards. You become authentic by taking action, especially when you don't feel ready. Look at how he lived this truth. He was a sickly professor who wanted to become a philosopher warrior. Instead of waiting to feel strong, he started hiking mountains while battling migraines. He wrote books even when he could barely see. The suffering wasn't getting in his way. It was his way. This is where Nietzsche gets really interesting. He noticed that your true nature often reveals itself through what you're willing to suffer for. Not what you enjoy when everything's easy, but what you're willing to endure pain for. Maybe you keep coming back to writing even though it's frustrating. Maybe you love solving technical problems, even when they give you headaches. That persistence despite pain, that's your true nature trying to emerge. But society does everything it can to keep you from this self-knowledge. It wants you predictable, controllable, normal. Since childhood, you're taught to be realistic, to fit in, to follow the approved path. Nietzsche called this social conditioning, and he saw it as the biggest obstacle to becoming who you are. Breaking free isn't just about rebellion, it's about reconnecting with your deepest drive. Nietzsche used the example of a tree. A tree doesn't try to be a tree. It doesn't read self-help books about better leaf production. It just grows toward the sun, fighting through any obstacle in its way. Humans have the same natural drive to grow, but we've buried it under layers of social pressure and fear. The resistance you feel when trying to change, that's normal. Your brain is wired to keep you safe, not to help you grow. Studies in neuroscience show that breaking old patterns literally causes discomfort in your brain. But here's the key. This discomfort is a sign you're on the right track. Every time you push through it, you're not just changing your behavior, you're rewiring your brain. Nietzsche's path to authenticity is brutal but simple. Identify what you're willing to suffer for, then suffer for it proudly. If you love creating art, then embrace the frustration of learning technique. If you want to build a business, welcome the sleepless nights. If you want to master a sport, love the pain of training. This isn't about being perfect. Nietzsche himself was a mess in many ways, but he was authentically himself, a sick philosopher who turned his suffering into some of the most powerful ideas in history. He didn't become unstoppable by pretending to be someone else. He became unstoppable by fully embracing who he was, including his flaws and struggles. And that's the ultimate lesson. Becoming unstoppable isn't about becoming some perfect, invincible version of it. It's about becoming so deeply, authentically yourself that nothing can shake you from your path. Because when you're truly aligned with your nature, even failures just become fuel for growth. That's what makes you unstoppable, not the absence of obstacles, but your capacity to transform every obstacle into a step forward. This is Nietzsche's real gift to not just philosophy, but a practical path to becoming who we are. It's not easy, it's not comfortable, but for those willing to take it, it's the most direct route to becoming truly unstoppable.